DHS Secretary Kristi Noem has been living rent-free in military housing that is meant to be reserved for Coast Guard leadership in order to better hide her affair with former campaign manager Corey Lewandowski. And while I'm sure it is super nice to have such a swanky love pad to use for all of her extramarital affairs, Noem's use of base housing creates a domino effect that ultimately results in active duty service members losing access to military housing at a time when there is already a massive housing shortage for service members. Some military families end up stuck on wait lists for base housing for literal years. I know multiple military families who have been forced to live in a single motel room with their entire family for months as they wait for any housing to open up for them. Noem and her team justify her free use of the swanky waterfront property by pointing out that Noem still has to pay rent for her luxury apartment in DC's Navy Yard district, which she began renting earlier this year, and which, conveniently, and I'm sure totally coincidentally, is right across the street from Corey Lewandowski's apartment. In fact, it was the Daily Mail publishing photos of Lewandowski walking back and forth between their apartments with a duffel bag that inspired Noem's move into military housing in the first place. After all, the media can't get photographic proof of your affairs if they just aren't allowed on base in the first place. But the last time I checked, as the spouse of an active duty service member, the military doesn't have "but we're still paying for our old place" clauses in their military housing rental contracts. One of the most common financial stressors for military families is figuring out how to either quickly sell or continue to cover the mortgage for homes purchased prior to Uncle Sam moving you to another duty station. I know, because it's a reality my husband and I live with every single day. So you'll have to forgive me for calling bullshit on Noem's excuse for why she should receive rent-free housing when no active duty service member or even previous cabinet members have received such an over-the-top perk. Especially when her annual salary as a cabinet member is more than 200 grand a year, an astronomical sum that it would take the average enlisted service member 4 whole years to earn. In fact, Noem's use of military housing is against the law, even if she were paying rent to stay there. Federal law states that the Secretary of Defense is the only cabinet member eligible to reside in housing reserved for military personnel. And even the Secretary of Defense must pay rent in order to do so, again, by law. Finally, just to cap it all off, when asked about Noem's unpaid use of military housing, her spokeswoman wrote in an email response to reporter questions, "If you cannot find humanity in another human's safety and security, I invite you to find it here," along with a link to Washington National Cathedral. That's right, the woman gleefully snatching innocent people off of the street, breaking apart families, and treating violence against immigrants as a photo op would like you to find humanity in her safety and security.